To the program. It is Amala and
Guten Tag, Velvet here, ready to give you all of the news of the day.
We also have...
Will, we're so happy to have you today. Just thank everyone for joining the stream.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that was our German accent for today. We decided, Will decided really on this one. I think it was a good choice.
We had girl came up to us at the event yesterday and said, we love your accents on this program.
Yes, we did go to a rally yesterday, and these girls walked up and they watch our live stream every day, and they were the most adorable little girls and so courageous, and they were telling us about their lives and their own fight against the woke left, so it was really cool.
It was really sweet. It's one thing to get all the views and have like the numbers that we see, but to actually go out places, especially at events, and see so many people and have them be so supportive of everything we do it's the best feeling in the world. It means that we're doing good work, and so we're really proud of it. Yesterday, Amala and I went to a pro-Israel march with Dennis Prager, which was a lot of fun. Dennis and I spoke, and that was awesome. There were so many people. This is in Los Angeles again. Yeah. And there were so many people out there who were coming to show the support for not just Israel, but Western values, America, conservative values. It was awesome. It was a really great event. Thousands of people. And there was, people were worried that there was going to be a lot of counter-protesters, but only like 10 people showed up. Yeah. Only like 10 losers who, didn't even do anything.
They weren't very vocal. They were just chilling there on the side away from where we actually were rallying and having fun. So it was great.
I know, if you're going to be a hater, at least like hate loudly,
At least be vocal about it, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, we're going to get into some stories for you guys today. And one in particular, this is really super interesting for me to watch. I'm sure for Will too. But 60 Minutes did a segment last night where they highlighted transgender people who have gone through the sort of reassignment process, whether that be puberty blockers, hormones, the sex reassignment surgeries, and have then chosen to detransition. So it was an interesting thing for me to see 60 Minutes really want to highlight this. So I wanted to share this little segment with you guys, and we'll react to it. So let's go ahead and get that running. Here we go.
In some cases, patients are choosing to reverse the process. It's called detransitioning. In her early 20s, Grace Ladinsky Smith was seriously depressed and developed gender dysphoria. She began searching for answers in transgender communities on the internet.
And when I saw them being so happy and excited about doing this wonderful transformative process to really become their true selves, it was like, have I considered that this could be my situation too?
Did this have any part of it? A sense that men had it easier in life than women did, and that your road might be easier if you were male?
Yes. I just had this sense that if I could inhabit life as a trans man, as a man, then I wouldn't feel so self-conscious. I was thinking that it would make me feel very free.
That's such an interesting perspective on why she would choose to transition, to see people who go through this sort of whole all-encompassing change to who they are as a person, or at least how they physically look. And she saw that and thought that was alluring. That's a really interesting
Yeah, that's weird, thinking that you want to be a man because of the privileges of being a man, not, right. I guess, because you feel like you were born a man, but more so just because you think that men have it easier in this world. Right. That's kind of a weird way to look at it, for sure.
And it's definitely not true. And I think we live in a society where the left would tell you that we live in a patriarchy and that as a woman, life is harder for you. I certainly don't echo that sentiment by any means. And I think there's a lot of people who will tell you that that's simply not the case. It's really not easier as a man in society. I think men and women complement each other. And it depends on what scope at which you look through the world, because men struggle with a lot of things that women don't struggle with.
Listen, if women wanted true equality to disband the patriarchy, then let's have more women septic tank cleaners.
Right.
If we get more women in the septic tank cleaning industry, then we can finally say that we're even, okay? But until women do that, you can't talk.
It's so funny because when women talk about the patriarchy and wanting to sort of usurp the power that men have, it only applies to the men of status who are living very, very successful lives. It never applies to the average everyday Joe who is just doing his job and supporting his family. And people look at this world and they call it a patriarchy. I'm not sure what they base that off of. I don't know if it's just male success or something of that nature, but men struggle with suicide, domestic violence. There's more men in jail, more men die in war. So what metric are we measuring patriarchy by?
Yeah, it's like 91% of all deaths that happen at work are men. And it's like exactly. Young men kill themselves at a rate 5 times higher than young women. So what kind of patriarchy are you talking about? Is that the patriarchy that they want?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Anyways, let's keep going here.
Grace says she found a gender therapist on the internet and told her, "I'm thinking of transitioning."
She thought it all sounded pretty good.
Did the therapist not question you about how deep the feeling was and what it was stemming from?
She didn't really go into what my gender dysphoria might have been stemming from. We only did a few sessions.
Because she was over 18.
Okay, so I just want to talk about this part real quick. We're talking about the doctor and like and the lady's talking about like, did she not question you that much on this? It's like, I can't imagine being a doctor right now in this kind of scenario. That seems like it would be really scary. Like you would probably lose your job. Like imagine if someone came up to you and said, "Oh, I'm thinking of transitioning," and then you question them back and say, "Are you sure?" These people will say, "What are you, some kind of transphobe? Are you some kind of bigot? Are you dismissing my transgender nature of myself?"
Yeah.
You know, so it's like this lady got it so easily that the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, you're transitioning, like whatever, we'll give it to you." But that's, it's almost not exactly the doctor's fault in a sense where it's like, this doctor is probably fearful for their job because if they don't give it to people like this, then other people come after them.
Right. We were sort of melding this society to where you can say that you are whatever you are and you can live free of objection. And a doctor's job is to object, to question, to really come down to the base of the problem that you're experiencing. And she sounds like she's been going through a lot of different things: depressive thoughts, suicidal ideation, manic depressive disorder, a lot of different issues that could be talked about here. But as a doctor, when you hear the word transition, I imagine you'd be a little fearful to question why.
Yeah, you're like kind of forced to say it, you know, because then people will say that you're a bigot.
Yeah.
If you don't give in to these people saying that they're transgender, then you're a bigot.
And it really is inadequate care at the end of the day that this girl can go for a few therapy sessions and then somehow be signed up to start transitioning to another sex. It's insane. Anyways, we'll let her tell her story.
And didn't need parental consent. She says she merely signed an informed consent form at a clinic and got hormone shots.
They asked me, "So why do you want to go on testosterone?" And I said, "Well, being a woman just isn't working for me anymore." And they said, "Okay."
So that was that. You got your prescription for testosterone.
Yep.
Just 4 months after she started testosterone, she says she was approved for a mastectomy, what's called top surgery, that she told us was traumatic. You know, I'm kind of surprised because based on everything you've said up to now, I would have thought you'd have a great sense of relief.
I started to have a really disturbing sense that like a part of my body was missing, almost a ghost limb feeling about being like, there's something that should be there. And the feeling really surprised me, but it was really hard to deny.
And so she detransitioned by going off testosterone and then went back to the clinic. And she says complained to the doctor that the process didn't follow the WPATH guidelines.
I can't believe that I transitioned and detransitioned, including hormones and surgery, in the course of like less than 1 year.
Did you see we had the same glasses?
You guys have the same glasses.
We had
There
the
you
same
go.
glasses.
I mean, kudos to her for recognizing that there was an issue and that she didn't want to fully go through with it and then reverting back. I can only imagine how hard that must have been.
This is one thing that we hear from the lefts. Like, we'll talk about this transgender stuff and issues with this, and they'll say, "Oh, this isn't really happening. They're not giving it to kids, and it's totally fine. Like, people just let them do whatever they want." And it's like, they are. This is a true story of someone coming out and saying that I was under 18, about to give informed consent and get all this stuff.
Yep.
It's just happening all over America. To say that it's not happening is being incredibly naive. It's happening, and the main problem with all of this is that people can just go in, walk in, and get it done, and the doctor will basically do it no matter what.
And people want to be accepting of this stuff, and I understand that, but you have to take this on with an amount of caution. These are very young people, and she seems particularly malleable as to what her life should look like. I mean, she says she went online and saw that people had transitioned, and that's what sparked her wanting to do this. It wasn't sort of any sort of deep-seated feeling that she had for years and years. She saw other people and was influenced to do so. So we have to keep that in mind when we talk about these issues. And it's really sad that people feel the need to do this, and there's essentially no objection. There was an objection from people in her life. There was not objection from her doctors. There was not objection from her therapist. And she went through this entire process only to revert back to where she was. And I can't imagine the amount of strife you have to go through to do all of that.
I mean, really, in like thinking about it, a doctor who gives this kind of thing and makes someone do this should be fired from their job.
Yep.
If the doctor says that this is okay and doesn't give enough science to back it up, I mean, I thought the left was all about following the science. If they don't give enough science to back it up, they should be fired from their job. What this girl went through because of this doctor and because of this therapist putting that out there is horrible.
Yeah, we are sacrificing health for the sake of open-mindedness. And as Michael Knowles would say, you can be so open-minded that your brains fall out. And that's exactly what's happening with this sort of trend that we're seeing right now with transgender youth. Anyways, let's continue.
It's completely crazy.
It greatly concerns me where the field has been going. I feel like what is happening is unethical and irresponsible in some places.
Laura Edwards-Leeper was the first psychologist at the first major youth gender clinic in the U.S. at Boston Children's Hospital. She says she has helped hundreds of teens and young adults transition successfully after a comprehensive assessment. Do you have conversations with your colleagues about this whole area of accepting what young people are saying too readily?
Yes, everyone is very scared to speak up because we're afraid of not being seen as being affirming or being supportive of these young people or doing something.
That's exactly what I just said. I haven't watched this video yet, so this is a bonus for me. But it's like they are too scared to speak up and say something because then they're not seen as affirming. But you're a doctor. There's a difference between accepting someone and then a difference between like total dominion over how people are supposed to think. There's a total difference there. Like you can accept these people, know that they're out there and be like, okay, do your thing, versus no, you have to think a certain way and you have to accept this. Otherwise, if you don't, you are an evil, bigoted person.
It's so true. And we as physicians and medical practitioners, you should always keep that in mind. When you go into your job, when you become a doctor, you take a Hippocratic oath. One of the parts of that Hippocratic oath is to first do no harm. And in allowing somebody to transition without fully vetting them psychologically, without fully going through all the different treatment options that you can partake with that person, it's unethical and it is wrong, and doctors should be called out for this. There should be some form of accountability for the rate at which this is happening, especially to young people. And we have a whole subset of our society on the left who wants to fight for young kids, I mean, really children, to choose what gender they are and allow themselves to undergo puberty blocking and take hormones. And this is the result of that. This is what's going to happen because there's no evidence that proves that transitioning when you have gender dysphoria or you have gender dysphoric thoughts is helpful in your mental health or your life going forward. There's no evidence whatsoever.
To hurt the trans community. But even some of the providers are trans themselves and share these concerns.
There's no confirmed number of detransitioners in the U.S., though their percentage among the more than 1.4 million transgender Americans is assumed to be small. They are becoming more public, though. We found a Reddit detransition support group with over 19,000 members worldwide, some saying they changed their minds because of family pressure or discrimination in employment and other areas, or simply regret. We also interviewed more than 30 detransitioners who say they also had experienced regret, including these 4 who hadn't met before now. How many of you feel that you were blindly affirmed?
I didn't get enough pushback on transitioning. I went for 2 appointments, and after the second one, I had like my letter to go get on cross-sex hormones.
2.
How crazy is that? 2 appointments. 2 appointments, and all of them just echoed the same sentiment that Will just said. How many of you were blindly affirmed in your identity because of how far we have gone as a society to accept this? It is a really big problem, and what scares me the most in seeing this video and seeing those 4 people is how young they look. How young are those faces? These are the people who we are truly affecting with this ideology. We are pushing it in schools, we are pushing it with our children at a very, very young age, and this is the harm that it does.
Visits, that's it? All 4 tell us they learned about transitioning on the internet, where there are transformation videos on YouTube, trans influencers, and forums.
I've just never been able to be me, but I can now.
For Daisy in Chicago, who says she started taking hormones at 18, everything was great in the beginning.
after every step that you take, every milestone feels like $1 million. When I got top surgery, I was elated. When I changed my name, I was elated. But when everything that I had set out to do was done, I still felt incomplete.
Garrett from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, went from taking hormones to getting his testicles removed, he says, in just 3 months, whereas the current guidelines call for continuous use for a year. He later got a breast augmentation, but instead of feeling more himself, he says he felt worse. So more depressed after you transitioned than before.
Mm-hmm. I had never really been suicidal before until I had my breast augmentation, and about a week afterwards, I wanted to actually kill myself. I had a plan and I was gonna do it, but I just kept thinking about my family to stop myself.
This is so sad, man. That's so sad.
It really is. And they make so many valid points that we should be talking about. The influence of social media is a major one. And we talked about this before, that social media just portrays the highlights of everybody's lives. And when kids go online and they watch these transgender YouTubers who are simply putting out, the best parts of their lives, not telling you about the true reality, the true horror of transitioning from one sex to the other, that's the sort of impression that you take. And of course you would be elated to withstand that process without truly knowing how you will feel at the end of it. It's insane.
It's hard to know what to say about all that, because it's obviously heartbreaking to see this kid break down and talk about killing himself, because it's so many of these people are pushed into it. They're pushed into it. Again, talking about the social media stuff, that is our culture right now.
Yep.
As we talked about, transgenders are 0.1% of the population, something like that. But you go around, we live here in Los Angeles, you go around Los Angeles, the amount of stuff you see with trans people, you would think that it's half of the population of this country.
Right.
And it's it's everywhere, and it's being pushed on people, and then it's pushed on people, and it ruins people's lives. It makes people want to kill themselves. Look at the suicide rates of transgender people now. So high because people are being pushed into it.
Right, and it's something to talk about, like what that kid just said. I believe a young girl said, when everything was done, I still felt incomplete. And people have tried to study this time and time again. Out of Sweden, one of the most comprehensive studies that happened around transgender individuals was a 30-year span of which they followed people from coming out as transgender to undergoing transitional surgery, and then 10 to 15 years after that. And after going through surgery, there was no decline within the suicide rate. There was no decline within the depressive rate. In fact, the suicide rate of people who are transgender even after surgery is about 20 times higher than your normal peer.
Yeah, it's just
a sad reality.
Sad.
So here we go. Let's keep watching.
It kind of felt like, how am I ever gonna feel normal again like other guys now?
Long before the anti-trans legislation was introduced across the country, the challenges facing the transgender community.
For just 60 minutes. It's not anti-trans legislation for all these different things, okay? Right. It is legislation trying to not have trans people in women's sports. It is legislation about bathroom laws, those types of different things. It's not anti-trans, okay? Just so you guys watching know.
Were daunting. LGBTQ advocacy groups like GLAAD and the Human Rights Campaign are worried that highlighting the stories of detransitioners could make things worse. Alfonso David is president of the Human Rights Campaign.
We're talking about a community, transgender people that are already marginalized, that are being further marginalized and victimized by elected officials, by anti-equality forces. They're being used as a political football. And these are real people. These are real lives that we're talking about.
So what?
Political football? Are you kidding me? This leftist guy coming on here talking about political football. Do you know what you are doing with the trans community? I'll talk to gay people out here in Los Angeles all the time. A lot of, I did an event with Log Cabin Republicans before. If you guys know what that is, it's like a group of gay Republicans. They're great guys. Anyway, did an event with them, and it's like lots of them, like, they want the gay community not necessarily with the trans community. They don't think that they totally equate together. They don't know why that the trans and gay communities are equated together. But the left puts them all together to make it so that they can use them for their political football. They can use those marginalized groups for their political gain. They're the ones doing it. We didn't even know. No one who's a conservative, we weren't bringing this stuff up. We weren't bringing up trans stuff and talking about it all every single day and having it all over the country until the left started bringing it up and saying how oppressed they are and how terrible it is to be trans and that everyone needs to be trans, like all of that. That was what they did. they did it to try and shame conservatives.
Yeah, he's totally projecting and, gaslighting, saying that, the very thing that they're doing, he's saying is what conservatives are doing. And just to his point that like these are real people, it's like we sympathize with that. Our reactions watching. I'm sorry, I didn't have the camera. Our reactions watching, this guy share his struggles and his journey is, genuine compassion. And like, we at PragerU believe in Judeo-Christian values. And one of those is that human beings are created in God's image and they have infinite value and worth because of that. And so I don't care, if you're black, white, yellow, trans, gay, straight, whatever, we believe that you have value and worth. And these people who are genuinely struggling, when they need support, but what they're getting from these leftist activists is not support. What they're getting is they're pushing them into this faux reality to make themselves feel better. And the button's stuck, that's why. Sorry guys. But they're pushing them into this faux reality, and it's like this virtue signaling to make themselves feel better about being activists and being on the right side. And the people who suffer are the actual, transgender or people who are confused about their identity and all that stuff, which by the way, when you're this age, who's not confused about their identity when you're like a teenager, a young teenager? And we live in a society where all this stuff is, being pushed on them from a young age, and the confusing messages. And then when they go to try to get help, the people are pushing them further and deeper into it. And that's what's creating these outcomes. That's why they become suicidal and have all these issues.
They're not getting help. They're getting pushed into it. Instead of someone saying, well, maybe let's like de-escalate the situation and see if maybe like you just are a boy who enjoys the color pink. I could wear a pink tie. It's a good looking thing. But it's like they push you into it instead of trying to give you another solution. That's the insidious part, what the left is doing. And then again, it's even more insidious because most of these people, at least in this interview right here, are children. These are people who are under the age of 18 who are having these transitions, totally regretting it, and their lives could potentially be ruined or they kill themselves.
Exactly. And it's we as conservatives, we're never really, this issue did not become a really hot button issue until it started to encroach on other things. Like Will said, transgender women joining in women's sports, or it being forced upon children. And that is a really, really big issue. That's why we should be talking about this, because this video, if nothing else, is extremely sad. And I was looking into studies to find out more about the mental health of people who are identifying as trans or are trying to transition. There are so many studies, and if you look into their funding, they are funded to push an image, push the fact that you should transition if you identify as trans or if you are experiencing gender dysphoria. There are no studies that look at transitioning transgender people juxtaposed with people who go and try to actively seek out long-term treatment to help themselves rather than getting surgery, rather than mutilating their bodies, which is a very, very sad thing to see. And we should be looking into this further because we are pushing it so hard as a society, and young people are going to be the ones that bear the brunt of this issue.
Right before the black guy came on, she was talking about how activists say that highlighting stories of detransitioning is bad for the trans movement. She said something basically like that. And it's like, you're not using it as political football when you are saying that highlighting stories of real people's struggles with this is bad for the movement. Are you serious? These are people's real lives. These are people's truths, and you want to hide them from the world because it paints an ugly picture on the things that you're doing to people.
Right. We want to look at all of this stuff in a positive light. And that's why these kids got tricked into doing this by looking at social media, because it's all positive highlights of people transitioning. They don't want to talk about the true horror of it, the true problems that can result of it. They don't want to talk about the suicide rate within the transgender community, the rate of psychiatric hospitalization, which is 2.8 times higher than the average United States citizen. They don't want to talk about the bad things because they know if people knew that, they would reevaluate their treatment. That's what they would do.
What are some of the challenges right now facing the trans community?
The trans community is facing an epidemic of violence. We've had at least 44 transgender people killed last year. Transgender youth, in many cases, attempt suicide at a rate of 4 times that of their peers.
There's worry that the idea that people regret the move can be used against trans people in this political environment.
I worry about it too. I think the kinds of things we advocate for don't hurt trans people. Like, we want there to be more help from therapists with dysphoria. We want there to be longer-term tracking of health outcomes. Everyone benefits from that.
Dr. Anderson says the stories of detransitioners mean the trans community as a whole needs more and better health care, not bans on treatment. And she thinks it's a mistake to ignore their voices.
I think we cannot turn a blind eye to the needs of those trans people who have gotten less than adequate care or even poor care. My heart goes out to them. And their stories are important, and we can't deny them.
There's just so much to unpack in that video.
I think we might get flagged on Facebook for this one.
We just might, but at least we are bringing light to an issue that needs to be talked about.
I'm not going to hold back on the things that I say or believe in just because Daddy Zuck might get a little upset with me. Okay, my job is to make Mark Zuckerberg upset.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry that we have to talk about this.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize to him. Okay, tell him how you really feel.
Well, I really feel like this issue is going to grow. It's going to get worse and worse. We're giving this a lot of visibility, but the left is also giving it a lot of visibility. So there has to be some sort of counterpart that is talking about the real truths behind being transgender and actually transitioning. Like I said, I looked into studies about what was going on here and about what happens to your mental health when you transition. The most comprehensive study I could find was one out of Sweden for 30 years. This is relatively new. And a lot of people on the left will tell you, oh, well, just as many transgender people existed back in the day. They just weren't as visible because they were fearful. I would argue that that's not the case.
Definitely
that is not the case at all.
Definitely not.
This is growing exponentially within our society, and it is going to become a problem.
I think there's a difference between the left and the right where we see, like, if something like this that I was advocating for, like, let's say I'm advocating for trans stuff and the situations were reversed, and then I heard about these detransitioning stories, I'd be like, wow, maybe what I'm doing is really wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should take a deeper look at what I'm doing. But the left, instead of doing that, they hide it. They hide it. They want to hide this information from people. I feel like as conservatives, at least me and Amala, sometimes Taylor, we're very open about a lot of the stuff that we talk about, and we take a pretty well-rounded approach and say, okay, here's it from this side, here's what we think about it, we show the videos, we do whatever, so that we can get a full world view of whatever's going on. But when it comes to these issues with the left, they have their one-track mindset, they're playing their political football like this guy said, and then they disregard any of the other information that's going on. They hide it from you. But this is what they're allowed to do. When you have control of the universities and the media, like, that's what you're allowed to do, because you have control over the entire narrative. So that's why we have to be better than the left. Okay, people think that you can just be on an even playing ground with the left and know your facts and know what's going on in the world, but that's not true. We have to be better than the left at every single turn because they already control everything. We have to be a step above and a step ahead of them at every single thing we do.
It's so true. They do already control most of our institutions, all of the media for the most part, and they don't fight fair. So we're over here trying to fight the battles with them, but also fight fair. So we do have to work harder to do so. We do have to show both perspectives. We do have to actively tell you why these things are going on and why they're wrong.
This is like, I saw a tweet, I think it was from Jack Poso the other day, where it was like talking about the left and cancel culture and stuff like that. And it was like the left canceling people. And he was like, cancel them back. Play by their rule book. Mm-hmm. It's like, at a point, when do we have to do what they do to get our values across?
Right. Because we are losing. we are losing our values.
Yes, Craig would tell you that over and over again.
Yeah, the left is winning. The left, and as true as that is, like that it's an uphill battle. Like, the best ally to have is the truth, and that is on our side. And that's why. Excuse me. Wow, what a burp over there. Sorry. Sounded like a dinosaur. We just watched Jurassic Park last weekend. I don't know. Maybe that was the inspiration.
We did.
Shoutout. But. Having the truth is the best ally. And when you're citing studies, we have a 5-minute video. I put it in the comments. Why Girls Become Boys by Abigail Schreier. She has a great book as well, and she's been deplatformed by Amazon and Target, and everyone's pulled her book off the shelves because it says true things and looks at true research and asks honest questions and looks at this issue honestly. And that's all. I mean, we just got to lean into the truth and keep beating that drum and not be ashamed of it and not be afraid to speak out and say true things, because that's what's going to wake people up.
Yeah, that's what it was with the Israel stuff that just happened. Like when we were doing that interview that came out last week with David Brogg, and I say, I want to ask you questions, not just things that I'm thinking. I want to ask you questions that I'm hearing on social media from people that the left is saying, so you can directly counter those points.
Right.
When Marissa came on last Friday, if you guys saw, the CEO of PragerU, and I'm asking her stuff, I say, here's what people are saying about it. Tell me why they're wrong. That's what I want to do. I want to get a holistic worldview so I can have the truth on my side, versus the left, who will just pat each other on the back saying the same thing over and over again and not have a different point of view expressed at all.
Exactly. And they push, and I'm sure you've been seeing it with the transgender issue. It's really hard to run away from. And like Will said, even though they represent nearly less than 1% of our U.S. population, you would think that they make up quite a big portion of our citizens, because the left is pushing it everywhere you look. They're pushing it in kids shows. They're pushing it in public schools. They're pushing it on cereal boxes. I'm sure you saw that Kellogg's came out with a Pride cereal box that allows your child to pick their pronouns on the side of the box. And now it's being pushed within our colleges. So that leads me to our next story. A judge rules that a Christian college must open women's bathrooms and showers to biological males. So this has been a lawsuit that has been ongoing with this Christian college, College of the Ozarks. It was a lawsuit that was opened in April, arguing that you should not force religious schools to allow biological males into female showers, into female dormitories. Now the judge has ruled against them and allowed that.
Seems pretty fair.
Seems pretty fair.
You know, just like the left, incredibly fair.
Right.
It's evil. It's genuinely evil. These kinds of things are evil, that you would force people to do this. If a school wants to choose and say, okay, we're going to do this, we're not a Christian school, like, okay, whatever, if that's what you're going to do, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. But, you know, if a school decides not to and they say, we don't want to, have this at our school, why can someone else step in and say, no, you have to do this?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. That's so unfair that someone is coming in forcing them to do it.
Like I said, and it's okay to be trans. If you are a grown man or woman and you want to transition, that is your personal choice. Conservatives don't really have a huge stake in that argument. We have stake on it when it starts to infringe upon our rights and the things that we're doing within our own lives. And the school said women should not be forced to share private spaces, including showers and dorm rooms, with males. And religious schools shouldn't be punished simply because of their beliefs about marriage and biological sex. And that's absolutely right. When does this argument get to infringe on religious beliefs, especially when the College of Ozarks is a private Christian college? That is completely within your right to dictate what the rules are on your premises, on your campus. Yet now we've had the government infringe upon that and rule against a college of which has their own set of values, and values that are religious ones nonetheless.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But it just shows like the state of the world right now, that even a starkly conservative Christian school can then be changed in a matter of years into a terrible leftist institution. Don't send your kids to college, okay? And don't donate to your alma mater. Don't do either of those things, because they will end up in a shower with someone of the opposite sex.
That's an interesting way to put that. But
you know what I mean.
You know, luckily what this college is going to do, they say that they are planning to appeal this case and continue to fight. And that's what we have to do. We can't just concede ground over and over and over again, especially when it comes to a private institution like this. We cannot allow the government to keep infringing upon our beliefs and upon our rights. It's just not acceptable.
As if you're a student and you are at a school and you're seeing these things happen to you, then you got to join Prager Force. Prager Force is our student program. We talk about this all the time, but I got to push you guys to do it. All right. This is our, what is it called? We're trying to get Membership Drive Month, where we are trying to reach 2,000 new members of Prager Force by the end of this month. We're almost there, and so you guys have to sign up. You can go to PragerForce.com. Taylor's about to drop the links, and I know that's what he's doing, typing over there. It's an amazing program. You can get all sorts of digital resources, get online community. There's tons of events we do online and in person. I mean, thousands of kids all across the world. We got a Prager Force kid in Venezuela recently. I mean, it's just, it is a way for that you imagine be you at a college or a young professional or high school, whatever, around the world, and you're lonely, okay? You're a little lonely guy because no one else is conservative around you. But you can go with Prager Force and find like-minded people who you can hang out with, learn from, and get opportunities for work, business, and school with. It's an amazing thing. PragerForce.com. Join. And if you're already watching this as a Prager Force member, you guys are slacking, okay? What you need to do is get one kid who you know to also join Prager Force with you. Get them to sign up. Send them the link. Make them do it tonight, all right? Make them do it.
Yeah, both Will and I. Do it, you guys. Do it. Will's coming after you. That's an advanced directive. You better do it.
Yes, you have to.
Both Will and I did start in Prager Force. So
we did.
And now here we are.
Yeah.
So who's to say where you'll end up if you join Prager Force?
President.
You know? You could be the president of the United States. Of the world. Anyways, we're going to lead into our next story here. So the New York Times finds support for Black Lives Matter plummeted since last summer, makes zero references to the months and the months of riots that happened last year. So if you guys are unaware of Black Lives Matter, which I doubt that you are, this organization came in hot last year after the death of George Floyd, which I believe we're coming on the anniversary of that tomorrow. Will be the anniversary.
In hot? Did you do that on purpose?
We came in hot and fiery, if you guys remember last summer.
Fiery but mostly peaceful.
Yeah, we came in fiery but mostly peaceful last summer.
Mostly peaceful. So following the death of George Floyd, I'm going to show you guys a graph here. Now, if you look at this graph here, you'll see a little peak in the support of Black Lives Matter. And this was following the death of George Floyd, immediately following that. So we see a large peak in support of Black Lives Matter. And then suddenly, as the riots start to break out and the violent, mostly peaceful protests in over 140 American cities, support for BLM plummets. So much so that now, so much so that now the support for BLM is lower than when it started out last year before George Floyd's death.
As it should be. These are domestic terrorists. These are people who caused literally billions of dollars worth of insurance payouts because of them destroying cities for stupid reasons. For reasons that didn't even make any sense. For reasons that were unjustified. Breonna Taylor, they thought it was a whole different situation than it was. Their actions were unjustified. The George Floyd stuff may or may not be unjustified, but let's at least look at all the evidence first before we say whether or not it is.
Right.
Before we go and destroy our city. The one guy, what was his name? When he got shot in the Wendy's parking lot by the cop. You guys remember this one? I forget the name of the name.
Yeah.
Was that Ahmaud?
No, that was not Ahmaud.
But anyway, the guy was, wanted for arrest and all of this. Anyway, but all of these things, they were first of all unjustified for the most part. Many of them went out and destroyed their cities for unjustified reasons. And secondly, it's always unjustified to destroy your city.
Right.
You should not be destroying your city anyway. Of course, people aren't going to like you when you go and destroy tons and tons of buildings and walk into a Target and steal stuff from it. Like, stealing a TV does not help black people. Okay? No wonder people aren't going to like your movement when that's what you base your movement off of.
It's so true. And this all sparked last summer, and all the riots and all the protests sparked from the death of George Floyd, the death of one man. And do you know how many people that those riots and protests killed? 24. Most of which were black Americans. So you accomplished nothing as BLM by rioting, looting, burning down your own cities, causing over nearly $2 billion in property damage over the duration of the 6-month period of which they were rioting in our streets. You accomplished nothing. You only served to destroy the society around you, the society of which you claim to be protecting, the black lives of which you claim matter. You've done nothing to help anybody around you in your community.
And their stated goal is to destroy burn, what was it? The Hawk Newsom guy in New York said, we'll burn the system to the ground.
Right.
And they asked him to clarify. He's like, I could be saying that metaphorically. I could be saying it, seriously. But, their founders have come out and say, yeah, we're trained Marxists. Like, there's, you
buying
can't hide
millions of dollars of houses.
Yeah, I'm forgetting about that.
Losers. Total losers.
They are.
Thugs, losers, Marxists.
And Black Lives
They all
Matter.
work together.
And they accumulated $90 million worth of revenue throughout the duration of their
way
riots.
more than 90 million. I mean, it was billions of dollars. When we made that reel, it was like 1.8 billion.
Well, last year during the summer, 90 million.
They're
and where did
pretty
that money
rich.
go? Where did the money go? Where did it go? Did it go towards Black lives? Did it go towards the black businesses that you burned down and that you looted? Did it go towards the families of people whose lives were taken by the police? No, they didn't. Breonna Taylor's mom, if you all remember, has not seen a dime from Black Lives Matter and has herself called their chapter a fraudulent chapter.
She's got to be one of those points on the graph, like the statistic going downwards, just like Breonna Taylor's mom. Right there on the graph.
There she is, because they've done absolutely nothing, and they don't stand by their mission statement whatsoever.
Well, their mission statement is to destroy, and they stood by that at least. But helping black people, no, they did not.
No.
They did not help black people.
Yeah, they undid years of actual progress, decades of actual progress in civil rights in this country.
I know. America used to be not such a racist place. And now I feel like it is more racist than ever because people are being taught to be racist.
Yeah.
People are being taught to hate each other. And that's a sad reality. And that's because of Black Lives Matter. No wonder people don't like you. because you make everyone hate each other.
Yeah. So New York Times put out this article. They didn't mention the riots whatsoever when they mentioned the decline in support for Black Lives Matter. And then all these political commentators came and swarmed them to talk about it. And there's just some really funny responses that I want to highlight for you guys. Hey, it turns out people hate billions of dollars in riot damages to their businesses while our media ignores and waves it away. That was Stephen Miller. So they all came out with some heat. It's weird. Maybe that 2020 long insurrection by Black Lives Matter, dozens of deaths, thousands of injuries, and $2 billion in damage had something to do with it. And it turns out riots, murder, and anarchy will do that to people.
No, it's just because America's racist. That's it. Because they hate black people.
Yes.
That's why.
I feel so much hate, especially here at PragerU. I feel completely hated.
Amala Epinobi out of context. When the
You guys
lawsuits
can't
start
see
coming.
it, but we're holding her at gunpoint this entire
Right.
live stream.
I'm just a puppet to the right, as they call me.
Did you tell him about the token thing?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So when I first started here at PragerU, when they announced that I was going to be a personality, somebody photoshopped me on a little token. They photoshopped my face on it and said
Like
the
a
new
coin?
PragerU token. Yeah, like a little coin.
That's a good one. That's
It's really
actually pretty
creative.
funny.
Speaking of very creative jokes and shots at PragerU, somebody posted this on Twitter today, and it did go kind of viral. This is the PragerU guy and Ben Shapiro.
I'm so glad we're showing this.
I know. I love this tweet.
That's meant to be Dennis, and that's Ben. That is
That's from
hilarious.
that's from like Fairly Odd Parents, right?
Yeah, Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
If you're going to hate on us here at PragerU, at least be as creative as this guy right here, because we actually get a laugh out of it. I think it's so funny.
Yeah, at least be funny. I'm sure if Dennis saw this, he would laugh. I don't know if Ben Shapiro would laugh. He's not much of a laugher.
No,
but
he's
Dennis would definitely laugh. Dennis would love that.
Hypothetically, you don't think he would laugh at this joke, at this meme?
If I laugh, okay, that would be a good thing. But I don't know. I have to look at all the data first. About what is laughter?
What is that?
Can you define it?
Anyways,
no, I think he'd like it.
Yeah, so if you're going to be hateful towards us, please be creative. I think that's our parting message for you today.
Like, you guys get so stale with your death threats, okay?
I know.
Like, at least think of like a better way to end me,
Yeah, if
Like
you
something
want me to
creative.
die, just at least do it creatively. At
Like
least add a couple
4
steps.
horses on each limb going in 4 different directions or something,
Drawn and quartered.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it like the
tips.
end of Braveheart, something. Do we make it creative?
Yeah, tarred and feathered maybe.
Like the
Just
guy in
try.
the stall at Jurassic Park, send
Yeah.
a dinosaur at me.
Yeah, so our parting message is try a little harder with your hate comments. And if you are a conservative young person out there, high school, college, or young professional, sign up for Prager Force and join our little community. You'll be seeing lots of me and Will if you join Prager Force. I hope that's a benefit to you, seeing lots of me and Will.
Oh, of course it is.
Might not be.
No, it is. Of course it is. Definitely. And Taylor. Amala is actually doing a TikTok 101 today.
I am. For our Prager Force members at 4 PST today, we are going to be doing a little TikTok 101 where I train you in the basics of using the app and making good videos.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a sneak peek of what you can get through Prager Force.
Exactly.
They did a Q&A with me last week, which was a lot of fun. So all the students got to come on, ask me questions and such. That was great.
Yeah, and we do it
It
with
was a lot of
Dennis.
fun for them.
It was a lot of fun for
Students
them.
love asking me
The
questions,
students
says
loved Will.
They really do.
But I love them. I love all my Prager Force students. You guys watching on the YouTube right now, I don't love you as much. I'm going to be honest.
Right.
But I love my Prager Force students. They are amazing. But if you join Prager Force, I will love you more.
Will personally love you if you join Prager Force.
I will not personally love you. Okay? It's no personal loving with these people.
All right.
Anyways, that is the program for today.
Wiedersehen. We had such a good time on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Danke very much.
Bye.
Adios.